Hello, everybody. I have 9:30 on my computer, and because we have half-hour time slots, we are going to get started and leave plenty of time for Hope to take us through some feel-good stretching today. So my name is Nikki Prosh. I am the Health and Physical Activity Field Specialist with SDSU Extension. We're excited to have you join us again here in October. This is our last session for the series of Onward in October. If you were able to join or weren't able to join, last week we had Megan Jacobson, our nutrition field specialist, talk us through some healthy kitchen hacks and tips to increase our daily nutrient intake. So if you weren't able to join, that recording should have been sent to your inbox so you can catch up if you missed that, or if you just want to rewatch some of the good information that was discussed, you can watch the recording. So today we have Hope Klein with us, who is the Health Education Field Specialist with SDSU Extension. She has an office on the Brookings campus at SDSU. She helps serve South Dakotans by helping individuals and communities implement healthy living interventions. She's a certified exercise physiologist, and her programming really focuses in the area of exercise in healthy communities. Please feel free throughout the presentation to type any questions you have in the chat box, and we'll address them at the end of the session. So to get us started, I am going to turn it over to Hope and let her share her presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the last session in Onward in October. I personally cannot believe how fast October has flown by. It's going to be Christmas before we know it. Okay, so before I get started with discussing flexibility and doing some stretching with you all in our offices today, we are asking you to share in the chat box what month you would like to have the next self-care series take place, and then some topics that you would like to see covered during the upcoming series. This will just help our team plan a little bit better and be able to just customize it a little bit better toward your needs. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, but you can go ahead and just put those in the chat box as you think about what you want. And then if you need some time to think about it, you can just enter it at any time throughout today's session. So today we're going to be talking about unwinding through stretching. As Nikki said, I'm Hope Klein. I have an extensive background in exercise. So I'm excited to be able to share some of my knowledge with you all today. So before we get started with discussing different stretching and why we want to do it, I just thought it would be beneficial to share with you all the 5 components of physical fitness. So you have muscular endurance, cardiorespiratory endurance, body composition, and muscular strength. So the 5th component is actually flexibility. And I know for me myself, before I learned about the different components of exercise, I would have never taken flexibility into consideration as a component of physical fitness. But it is a really important part of your exercise routine. The American College of Sports Medicine, also known as ACM, recommends that you stretch before and after your workouts, whether you're doing a cardiorespiratory workout like a walk or a jog, or doing some muscular strength or endurance training. Oops, my slide will not advance. There we go. So going a little bit further into stretching, there's 2 different types. There's static and dynamic. So static is when your muscle is held in an elongated position, like the image shown on the left side of the screen. This is what a lot of people think of when they think of stretching. They picture, an individual stretching out their hamstrings or their quadriceps. And that's a really great kind of stretching. There's also dynamic. So this is what a lot of individuals do when they're doing a warm up and they don't realize that they are working on their flexibility. So dynamic is when you're moving the joint and muscles through the full range of motion. So as you can see in the image here, these individuals are doing high step or high knees. And the important part about doing a dynamic exercise is that it helps warm up your body. It helps warm up those muscles and even loosen them a little bit. So it helps you move through a range of motion in a more fluid manner when you're doing whatever exercise it is that you intend to do for your exercise routine for that day. So your static stretching is what you typically do after your workout. And this helps with muscle recovery. It helps you be less sore or less stiff after a workout, either later in the day or even the next day. And when you're doing your static stretches, you want to hold them for anywhere between 10 to 30 or maybe even 45 seconds for the best benefit. And also, when you're stretching after your workout, it's also highly important to be drinking plenty of water. And flexibility exercises should be done 2 to 3 days a week in order to maintain or increase one's range of motion. And range of motion is something that is highly important for any individual, especially if you're somebody that is at your desk a lot of the day, like many of us likely are, and you're just not moving your joints. You're not utilizing your range of motion in your shoulders when you are just sitting at your desk. You're not utilizing your hip range of motion. And that's really important to maintain that because it helps prevent injury. It helps you be more flexible so that if you just given the time of the year, if you slip on the ice and you go to catch yourself, being able to have a broader range of motion is going to help prevent injury, which is why that's so important and can be so impactful. So that's kind of one benefit of stretching. And now we're going to go into several others. I know for myself, I tend to, I'm going to get a quick workout in, and stretching is something that I tend to neglect or shorten. But I always can tell when I do take the time to stretch the benefits of it. So as I mentioned, being flexible and maintaining your range of motion helps prevent injury, whether it's you slipping on ice or injury during a workout. It increases blood flow. Oh, sorry about that typo. It increases blood flow throughout your entire body. It reduces joint stiffness. It can help relieve back pain. It can improve your range of motion, improve your balance, and it can even improve your coordination. I know for anybody out there who is a big advocate of running, walking, jogging, if you have IT band problems, so that's going to be kind of felt in the side of your hip, stretching out your IT band before and after you're walking or running can be extremely helpful to be able to alleviate some of that pain. So if you're feeling pain when you're working out, think about, if my calf is cramping up during a run, what can I do before my run? Or can I, step off to the side and stretch out my calves for 10 to 30 seconds for each side, and it might relieve some of that pain that you're experiencing. And then a good note, just below that bulleted list, when you're stretching, it can alleviate tension that you're experiencing. So let's just take it in reference to when you're at work. If you're working really hard to meet a deadline, you're sitting at your desk and you probably have your shoulders up like this and you're tense in your upper back. When you stretch out, it's going to alleviate that tension that you're experiencing, which is in turn going to relax your muscles and then therefore reduce your stress. So it actually can make you more productive, a more pleasant office mate to be around, and you can get your work done on time. A question that I often get is, when is it that I should stretch? I am a strong advocate of, you can stretch in the morning, you can stretch in the middle of the day, you can stretch in the evening. It's really up to what fits your schedule, when you can fit in a couple minutes during your day, and just when are you experiencing the most stiffness. So it's always recommended to stretch before you perform aerobic or strength training activities. So this can be done in that dynamic format that I discussed. And then to add an extra 5 to 10 minutes to the end of your workout to stretch, like I said, that can help with your muscle recovery. But if you are just feeling tense or worn out or just need a lift, you can stretch any time of day, and that can be helpful. I know I commonly like to turn to coffee, like, it's 2 o'clock and I'm hitting a wall, I'm gonna go grab a coffee quick. Try maybe taking 5 to 10 minutes to stretch, just stretching out your upper back, stretching out your neck, and see the rewards that you can benefit from that before you go reach for some more caffeine. So we've all experienced that midday slump or maybe even mid-morning slump where your energy drops. And often we feel desperate for a quick fix. So like I said, that's when I go grab a coffee. But the solution can be simpler than we think. by simply just doing some stretches, taking a quick break for yourself to stretch out. Maybe you don't feel like you have 5 minutes, maybe you just have 2 or 3, and that's fine too. Just target on those key areas that you're feeling tension in and do some stretching. And whether you are sitting or standing all day, it's going to be highly beneficial to just stretch your body out, and not even just your upper body. If you're in a seated position, it's going to benefit your hips, your knees, your hamstrings from getting yourself out of that seated position and just simply moving your body. So we're almost to the point where we're going to go through some stretches together. But first, I want to give some tips and techniques. So first off, if you're able to, like, especially before doing a dynamic stretch, before a workout, you do want to do a light warm up for just a couple of minutes. You don't want to jump right into doing some high knees, doing some jumping jacks, or any of those items that will help loosen up your muscles. You definitely want to do a warm up, and that's going to help prevent injury too. And explore different kinds of stretching techniques. So a lot of people, turn to maybe yoga for some stretching, and that's great. But if that's not something that is comfortable to you, then try a different stretching technique. You can just do something on your own. You can go to YouTube and find plenty of different stretching videos. And just trying different methods is going to make you more likely to stop, take a break, and stretch, because you're going to find what feels the best to you. And you can use different stretching aids. So that's what this image here shows. It shows the yoga blocks. So those can be really helpful. I did have an image, I thought, with yoga blocks, but I don't think I do. They can be really helpful, like if you're doing a standing stretch and it's like, okay, reach for your toes. But if you can't reach your toes, to make your stretch more comfortable, you can have that yoga block in front of you, and you can just place your palms on the yoga block. So it just serves as a lift, so you're not going so deep into a stretch that it is painful. They also have these assistive bands, so that if you're like lying on your back and you have your leg extended up, you can loop that band around your ankle, and you can help pull your leg closer into your body to feel a deeper stretch throughout your hamstring. Okay, so now we are at the point where we're going to do some stretches. I'm going to stop screen sharing just so that you're able to see my video. Okay, so we're going to start in a seated position, and we will eventually move to do some standing ones. But first, what we're going to do, getting my notes set up. First, what we're going to do is we're going to just start off really simple. So sit in the middle of your chair. Again, standing. I haven't had enough coffee, I guess, you guys. Sit nice and tall with your spine elongated. You don't want to be slumping forward. So a nice tall spine, bring those shoulders back and down. And we're just going to start off easy with some neck or head tilts. So you're just tilting your left ear to your left shoulder, and then you're going to tilt back. So we're just going to kind of rock back and forth a little bit. You can either follow my pace, or you can go at a pace that is more comfortable to you. And if you're more comfortable, you can close your eyes and just focus on your breath. Take the moment to not just stretch out some tension, but to just have some space for you. All right, on this next head tilt, you're going to hold it. And then depending on what kind of chair you're in, it'll be easier if you don't have an armrest, but you'll take your opposite arm and you're going to have it dangled down at your side. So that's going to help bring your shoulder down, and it's going to deepen that stretch through your neck here. So just envision like you're holding your briefcase in that hand to pull that shoulder down. Take some nice deep breaths here. Feeling that tension pulling out of those muscles. And go ahead and go to the other side. Again, letting that opposite hand drop down. Nice deep breath. Take 2 more deep breaths here. And bring your head back up to neutral. Next, we're gonna do another easy one, just doing some neck rolls. So you're drawing a circle with the top of your head down, around, and back. Nice and slow. And switch directions of your circle. All right. Okay, now you're going to be still in the middle of your chair. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a seated cat-cow pose. So if you're familiar with yoga, that's kind of the same mentality that we're using here. So again, you're sitting in the middle of your chair, having your spine long. You're going to inhale. You're going to open up your chest and arch your back so that your glance goes up to the ceiling. And then as you breathe out, you're going to curve your spine to look down like you're going to look at your belly button. And that's cat. So breathe in, go into that cow pose, arching that back, pushing those shoulders back and down. And on the exhale, going into the cat pose. We're going to do this one for a little while, just going to the movement of your own breath. Really feeling movement of your entire spine. Let's do 2 more. And 1 more. All right. Come back to that neutral position in your chair. Still trying not to utilize the backrest of your chair, sitting nice and tall. We're going to do a seated side stretch. So you're going to reach your arms up. Go ahead and grab your left wrist with your right hand, and you're going to lean to the side and you're going to pull on that arm to help deepen that stretch. So you'll feel a stretch throughout your shoulder, through your side, and maybe even down to your hip. Keeping that core tight to keep you stabilized and making sure that you are breathing. Let's hold this for 1 more breath. In and out. All right, back to that neutral position. Go ahead and roll out your shoulders a little bit. Bring your arms back up. Now you're grabbing the right wrist with your left hand and pulling to the side. Making sure you keep breathing. Holding it for 3, 2, and 1. All right, now we're gonna work on opening up our hips a little bit. So I'm gonna have to point my camera down to my legs quick. So we're going to be doing a seated pigeon. So you're going to be sitting again in the middle of your chair. You're going to bring one ankle on top of the opposite knee. So this is pigeon. It's also been called the number 4 stretch because when you're standing, your legs make the number 4. So being in this position, this might be enough of a stretch for you through your hips. If you need to go into a deeper stretch, you can press gently down on that knee, and you can even hinge forward in your hips as far as is comfortable to you. You should be feeling a stretch through that hip on that leg that is raised. And remember, you're just going into as deep of a stretch where you feel stretch and feel yourself being able to release some tension throughout that muscle, but it shouldn't be painful. You should be able to comfortably breathe through this stretch. And go ahead and come up, place that other foot on the floor, and raise up your opposite one to stretch on the other side. Again, just sitting here might be enough. You can press down gently on that knee, and you can hinge forward to deepen it even further. If you're hinging forward, make sure to keep your spine straight. You don't want to arch over like that. That's going to put strain on your back and neck. So just maintaining that long spine and hinging forward. All right, place both feet on the floor. This next one, we're gonna stand up. We're gonna do 2 more. I'm gonna raise up my desk a little bit. Okay, so the first one we're going to do, we're going to be stretching out our back one more time. So you're gonna stand nice and tall. Maybe I need to move this down a little bit. You're going to grab your wrist with one of your hands, and you're going to pull it back into the side. So if you're grabbing your left hand with your right hand, you're going to use your right hand to pull your left hand to the right. And you should feel a nice stretch through that shoulder. Go ahead and relax, shake out your arms, and then now grab that opposite wrist and pull it the other direction. So again, if you're using your left hand to pull your right arm, you're pulling to the left and feeling a good shoulder stretch. Go ahead and relax. Shake it out a little bit. All right, next, we're gonna focus on our legs a little bit. So our hamstrings can get really tight from being in a seated position for an extended amount of time. So go ahead, I know you probably can't see it, but I'm just taking my left leg, placing my heel on the floor, toes pointing toward the ceiling, and then hinging at my hips to lean forward. So this is targeting your left hamstring. Again, keeping that back nice and straight, not arching over. Really pull those toes up to point to the ceiling. You'll feel a stretch through that hamstring and maybe even your calf a little bit, depending on how tight that is. See if you can go in a little bit deeper now that you've been here for a little bit. And roll up. Now put that right heel out in front of you. Again, toes pointing up to the ceiling and hinging at your hips. Going to the point where you feel a good stretch, but it's not uncomfortable and you're easily able to continue breathing. And try to go a little bit deeper into that stretch. And come up. All right, shake it out a little bit. So what we did were a lot of static stretches, and I just want to touch on a couple dynamic stretches that you could do in your office. So a good one you can do is just simply having your arms up and opening and really squeezing your shoulder blades together as you bring your arms back and then bringing them forward. And this is a really good one to do when you've been at your desk because it helps open up your chest and it helps engage those upper back muscles that we tend to neglect when we're in a seated position for a long time. A few other ones that I like to do, you're not going to be able to see it super well, but if you stand with your feet a little bit more than shoulder width apart, and it's almost like you're doing side lunges, just rocking back and forth. This just helps get movement through your ankles, through your knees, and through your hips, all of which are often stationary and can feel stiff when you're sitting in your desk for a long time. Again, you always can do like high knees or just marching in place and get some arm movement going. You could even do some of the butt kickers, or if you have a standing desk or you just take a break from sitting and you just stand, you can do heel raises. So just rolling up to your toes. And then you can do the opposite too to engage your shin muscles and do toe raises. This one I always need to like hold on to something because I feel like I'm gonna fall backwards, but raising those toes up to the ceiling. So those are just some different stretches that you can do, both static and dynamic. It's always really great to just take a minute or two to just move your body a little bit throughout the day. And that is all the stretches I had prepared. Do we have any questions that anybody has?
Yeah, Hope, there was a question earlier in one of the slides. Danny asked, when you're doing static stretches, what's the optimal length of time to hold each stretch?
They say a minimum of 10 to 30 seconds is going to be the most beneficial. Typically, like when you're doing your warm up, if you're doing some of those stretches, static stretches, doing that 10 to 30 is going to be fine. But when you're doing those static stretches during a cool down, I like to kind of extend the stretch a little bit longer, maybe closer to that 20 to 30 or maybe even 45 seconds. That's just really going to aid in that muscle recovery, help you feel less stiff and sore. And then if you're looking to increase your flexibility and range of motion, holding it to that 30 to 45 seconds is going to be most beneficial as well.
Perfect. There was another question too. Is there such a thing as overstretching?
Yes, believe it or not, there is. I don't know, my knowledge doesn't go very deep into the topic of overstretching, but this is something that people who are professional dancers, like ballerinas, they can experience overstretching, and then they can actually have too much range of motion, which increases their chance of injury as well. So being not flexible enough and not having a lot of range of motion can lead to injury. But on the opposite side of, or the extreme side of the spectrum of being too flexible, too much range of motion can lead to injury as well, because you won't have that strength to hold those joints into place. Great questions. And we have 2 minutes left if anyone else has any other questions. But also a reminder, if you did not put in some topics that you would like to see in the next series, go ahead and drop those in the chat box as you've maybe had some time to think about it.
Yes, and if you've been on a few of these sessions, we do a quick poll here, but feel free to type questions and add those things that Hope mentioned as I launch these polls. They're really short and sweet. And as I have these launched, I'm going to kind of do our closing too, since we're getting pretty close. But as always, we're very welcome to your feedback, to your topics, things you want to see, things maybe you didn't like, just because we're really trying to build these self-care series to fit kind of our audience and what they're looking for. We're also open to feedback on times of day, length of time for the session. We've kind of been doing Fridays 9:30 to 10 Central Time, but if there's different times of day that work better, please feel free to let us know that. Okay, so here, did you feel today's session was good use of time? Well, I'm very glad to see we got all yeses, so thank you for that. I have another question for you here. Here is the second question about your knowledge change. And then just as a reminder too, you should be receiving or have received recordings of the sessions. You'll receive the recording of today's next week. I think maybe the recipes that Megan shared last week got missed, so I will, or the week before. So I will send a follow-up email with the recipes just to make sure everyone receives that in time. Okay, I'm gonna end this poll too. Also positive feedback. I got one more for you. I know I'm right at 10 o'clock. And this is just in regards to self-care. So kind of as my final wrap up, we have all your email addresses from your registration. So likely when we get another session scheduled, we'll send out an email with information to register for our next session. We have a planning meeting coming up in the next 2 weeks where we'll talk about dates and topics. So just sending us your feedback is always, as I mentioned, welcome. Okay, I will end this poll. Also very positive feedback. Thank you for sharing that. All righty, well, that is all we have for you today. Thank you for joining us for this series. If you weren't able to join every Friday, I encourage you to go back and watch some of the recordings because I feel like there was a wealth of information covered in these 30-minute timeframes that are hopefully really beneficial for your health. And then of course, self-care tips that you can take away and do on your own outside of these sessions. And thank you, Hope. I feel, as everyone's comments, I feel so much more motivated and ready for the day.
Great. Thank you, everybody.